Hello and welcome. Welcome to the LinkedIn Live session. Today we're going to look at fit for purpose, sustainable PPE. I'm John Barnacle Bowd. I'm the Vice President for Environmental Health and Safety at RS Group. We are today going to look at the sustainable approaches to PPE and health and safety. If you want to have a glimpse of the new health and safety report from the 30th of April, you'll be able to download that from our website, RS UK and Ireland on LinkedIn, so please do so. I've got 4 panellists with me today. I'm going to ask them all to introduce themselves. Let's start here with Hugh.
Thanks, John. Hi, everybody. Name's Hugh Maxwell. I'm a health and safety and risk professional with over 35 years experience internationally, and the issues of sustainability and PPE and making it fit for purpose for the user are very close to my heart, so I'm very pleased to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Debbie Dixey and I'm a PPE solutions specialist for UVEX Safety UK.
Debbie.
Good morning, I'm Paul. Good afternoon even. I'm Paul Walsh from Sundstrom Safety. I've been in the health and safety industry for the best part of 40 years in various different guises, from product distribution and more latterly manufacturing. So I have a real interest in health and safety matters generally. So thank you for the invite today.
Paul.
Yeah, lovely to be here. Thank you. I'm Stephanie Boyce. I work for Avena, and Avena are a secure destruction company who offer a sustainable end-of-life solution to all types of textiles and channels, as well as PPE.
Thank you very much. So today we've got 4 key approaches, all around sustainable PPE, obviously. First group of questions is going to be around current approaches. Then we're going to go to current challenges, plans for the next 5 years, and then future challenges. So we have plenty of questions. If I nod, it's time to move on, but we have a few questions. The first question I'm going to pose to Steph, Paul and Debbie, because you're sitting opposite me and it's easier. So what approach does your organisation take to sustainability? Tell us about how that began and has evolved. So Debbie, why don't we go to you first?
Okay, so sustainability for UVEX, it's basically in our DNA. Since 1926, our slogan has been protecting people, and this has sort of evolved now into the environmental side of things and sustainability side of things. For UVEX, we've managed to reduce over the last decade our carbon footprint by 70%. And we've also looked at durability of products, looking at reducing waste and also introducing bio-based materials into our categories. Our aim basically is to be carbon neutral by 2045, which is 5 years ahead of the European Green Deal.
Okay, good, thank you. The same question to you, Paul. Do you want me to say it again, or are you okay?
Yeah, no problem at all. It's really interesting actually. Sundstrom business started also in 1926, so a very similar time. But as a Swedish business, it started with Avena Sundstrom, who looked to develop a product for respiratory protection. And I guess when you think of it in that respect, we've been involved in sustainability for a very long time, because respiratory protection is protecting the person. And from a sustainability perspective, the product fits that category very, very well indeed. But it really started with the owners of the business, and through 3 generations of the company, that culture has really continued right the way through. And you can just see it in every day in and day out performance of people around the business itself. But the good thing about the products is they've always been manufactured and designed to be really comfortable, really durable, long-lasting, high quality. Sundstrom doesn't get involved in disposables. We focus purely on products that you can reuse. So again, from a sustainability perspective, over many, many years, the product has really fit the profile. Even now, the nice thing about the way the business works is, yes, we set some great goals for people within the business. Yeah, we set some great goals for the performance of the business. But the product design is really great, and how we now take that to a level where it's not just about producing a great product, it's how you service it to make it last longer. So it's that kind of culture which has really come through the business over a very long time.
Okay, good. Thank you. And Steph?
Yes, so at Avena, securing the future is our goal. It's our overarching ethos, and that counts for everything that we do, so internal and external stakeholders, but also within the environment. We started out as a business that focused on secure destruction, so customer data, mainly paper, and I think it's no secret that paper is relatively easy to recycle, which we've done very successfully. And then about 3 years ago decided to spread our wings, and that's when we started to look at what else our clients needed in terms of a service that we could also offer a sustainable output to. And we became involved in looking at textile, especially within the arena also of PPE, anything with any branding on it, any IP-led branding. And that's where we provided the secure destruction, but with a sustainable output. So for us, the end goal is constantly sustainability in everything we do and everything we offer for our customers.
Cool. We've got the right group of people here today then, so that's fine. Okay.
Hopefully.
So the second question, and I'm going to put this to Paul, Steph and Hugh this time. What are the steps that companies need to take to implement more ethical and sustainable PPE procurement? And does the approach change depending on the size of the organisation? So I'll start with you, I think, Paul.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. In terms of does size of organisation matter? Absolutely, because smaller organisations do not have the same kind of resources that they can put into a sustainable program, but it shouldn't stop them having a great plan. And I think that's the key bit sometimes, is taking the time with inclusivity of people in your organisation to sit down and identify what your goals are. Have a really good plan, and then seek the sort of kind of financial support you need in-house to make sure that you've got a way of delivering that. And then working with trusted partners. So there's plenty of organisations out there who actually, on your behalf, will actually provide you information that will help you make great decisions on your supply chain, for example. And working with people within your organisation really helps drive that culture, which we spoke about a bit earlier. For bigger organisations, different challenge really, because typically they have got more resource. They may have a global reach. They may be able to use partners in different parts of the world. But it ultimately comes down to trust and recognition, I think, at the end of the day. If you've got something that qualifies your supply chain, that gives you confidence in where you're buying products from, whether it be raw materials or finished articles, that's the kind of thing and culture you want to bring into your business, I think.
Yeah, good point there you mentioned about partnering, and now our RS group have partnered with Sundstrom, so nice link there as well, I think, so thank you for that. Hugh, what's your take on this?
I must admit I fully support and endorse everything Paul said there. Irrespective of the size of the business, it's so important that we look pre-cradle to post-grave in terms of establishing what's really required, fit for purpose, with sustainability being a key focus going forward, because ultimately the more sustainable we make it, the more we can make it fit for purpose and encourage people to keep using it, build these relationships and partnerships. There are financial as well as ethical and sustainable savings to go forward.
Good, thank you. Steph, Natalie.
Yeah, and I think I'd probably add into that we would probably sit there as a partner. That's our perspective. And the key thing for us is about educating. So we will work bespoke with each company, regardless of what size they are, regardless of whether they are a small, really great little SME in the back end of the UK or a global concern. And we'll go in and we'll work bespokely with them to look at what they can be doing, what solutions are available to them. But everything we do is about education and knowledge sharing with those companies.
So a flexible approach, really.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, good, thank you. The third question, I'm going to come to Debbie and maybe Paul again. You seem to get a lot of questions today. So we'll start with Debbie anyway. So Debbie, how important is internal culture when it comes to ensuring sustainability is embedded within a business?
I think it's really key. I mean, it's really good because then you're following the values of the company to make sure that we all hit our focus goals. Within UVEX, we have a really good culture, and that's enabled us to introduce products where we reuse our own waste, so we can be recycling our own products into. A good example of it then would be we have our footwear and the sole unit, the waste material from the polyurethane we actually grind down and use as an insole. So we're reusing our own waste material. So the culture is really good, and people thrive on putting new messages forward and bringing things on. On top of that, recycling and using eco-friendly sort of packaging, we've also introduced the Planet range of products. So the Planet range of products are then a range of products that actually include bio-based materials, plant-based materials, or recycled materials. So a customer can actually see what we're putting in. But I think it's really key to have evidence of that. There's a lot out there at the moment on the market where the evidence isn't provided for the sustainable product itself. So it is about using companies that you can source the correct information from, to ensure that it's not just a stat that somebody's given you, it is a true value that we're offering.
Yeah, right, reflection of the business sort of thing. So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Paul, anything to add from the Sundstrom
Yeah,
perspective?
I can completely agree with what you're saying there. I think ultimately it comes down to the leadership of your organisation. It's a much harder thing to deliver if you're starting from the bottom upwards. If you've got the buy-in from the leaders of your organisation, the passion to deliver this kind of change or to continue that kind of change within an organisation, that trickles down to departmental managers, team leaders, individuals within groups, and it becomes the culture in that respect. And much the same as yourself. I heard a fantastic story from our production manager recently, Andreas, and he was talking about how we wanted to introduce a separation process for plastics and cardboard in the factory. Okay, they went to the teams around the factory, and within a day, and ever since, it's been absolutely implemented with no question. Now, how hard would that have been a few years ago if you haven't got the right culture? It's hard to fill the right bins at home sometimes, isn't it? So getting that kind of culture means that people just buy into it, and you can see the results very, very quickly.
Good. Thank you very much. So we're going to go on now to current challenges. First question. It's two of the three on the couch again, I'm afraid. So, how can companies track their sustainability data regarding health and safety? So specifically, safety data, but linked to the sustainability side. So, Steph, let's start with you.
Yeah, okay, so this is a really key piece for us, because with the service that we offer, people are looking exactly for those stats. They're looking for us to be able to stand by the information we pass on so that they can stand by it as well. And that for us has come a lot from investing in working with specialists, bringing consultants in, and also making sure that the information that we pass on is fully auditable, and we point our customers to where we get that information from, where we get the calculations from. And one of the things we've introduced in recent years is an environmental impact statement. So making sure that the customer has that information to be able to track their benefits of working with partners like us, but also where we're able to track where we're making a change as well.
Okay, good. Paul?
Yeah, I mean, there's expectations in the EU, for example, that sustainability must be tracked and audited and maintained and reported. And it's great because within Sundstrom, I've seen a lot of evidence of that going back for many years, actually. But yeah, working with organisations that can assist you in managing your data, but also looking at the comparisons of other suppliers or manufacturers in the marketplace, it gives you that good benchmark. And we've just been involved with EcoVadis and companies like yourselves, and they're great because they give you that information. It's just not so easy to get. So yeah, they're the kind of challenges I see.
I suppose it's like as well, if you've got customers and your customer base, if they have issues with product, how they can report that back if it's linked to any health and safety issues as well, isn't it? So
I was going to say, we companies keep records anyway.
Yeah.
It's all relative to sustainability, even sort of absence records, things of that nature. They're all relevant in terms of sustainability.
Good. Debbie, you next?
Yeah, I think for me, it's the transparency. It's being able to easily access those reports. I think in previous meetings we've had with customers, they find it difficult to actually source that information. So it's, the EcoVadis comes up, you've got the GRI report, so it's knowing where to source that information. From a UVEX point of view, we've gone a step further, and we're one of the manufacturers at the moment that is actually promoting CO2 footprint by product. So we use SEMA Pro, which actually calculates what our greenhouse gases is per product. I think going forward, it'd be great to see this across industry, because it's a way of knowing what that CO2 footprint is, very much like pricing. So you'd go for the better CO2 footprint as you would with a better price. So we'd like to see that going forward across, sort of the PPE industry, so the end user can compare, or the customer can compare.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, so thinking now about supply chain, I'm going to come to you first, Hugh, if I can. How can you ensure a more ethical and sustainable PPE supply chain?
Well, I think you've all hit the nail on the head, the fact that you've got to get that commitment from the leadership team first and foremost. But you've got to involve the right people at the right levels of the business, because the people who can truly impact on this are your middle managers, are the people at the sharp end. Paul mentioned about getting the employees involved. They can make these things happen and transform. So I think it's about selling the benefits. It's about really living the values and putting sustainability up there on the table. I think there's a big change of people's mindset, particularly since the COVID days, in as much as people are much more risk aware. When I'm talking risk, I'm talking about environmental risk. We all want all the resources available to us to be there tomorrow for our kids and our kids' kids. So I think the important thing is to try and get people engaged so that they can see the management are committed, the business itself is committed, and they can do their bit in this process.
Good, thank you. Steph, have you got anything to add on that for the supply chain piece?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, it just goes back to education, and I think it's about partnering, and it's about companies like ours working with manufacturers and with our customers to talk about what we need to see. Health and safety has often been about simplicity. That's always been the sort of the main goal. And I think when you start to look at what you can do with, for example, a safety boot versus an item of protective clothing, is vastly different when you're trying to actually deconstruct those components and recycle them. But actually, as long as everyone's on that same route to innovation and betterment and continuous improvement, absolutely, it's about knowledge sharing and the right people working together.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely, I'd agree with you there.
Yeah, all right. Paul, anything to add on that from your perspective?
Only insofar as I think it's important that companies ask questions of their supply chain. To what we said earlier, that it's one thing having an understanding that you've got a supplier you work with for many, many years, but ask them some questions. Get them to demonstrate to you how they work, how they're being responsible, how they're employing ethical processes in their plant. That's the kind of thing that reassures you that you're working with the right people.
Yeah, okay. You both Debbie and you both mentioned EcoVadis. And obviously there's lots of questions around EcoVadis, where they look at supply chain, customers, the whole life cycle really. Has that made any impact on what you do more recently with those certifications, do you think?
When you say, has that made an impact within the business or on the end user?
Well, either or really. I'm just thinking the supply chain, because there's that enforced, you want to be certified to EcoVadis because it can help you open more doors to sell more products really.
Yes.
And it's about the, where you have to manage your supply chain a bit more to make sure you're right. You've probably covered some of those points already, but I didn't know if the EcoVadis piece was something key for you.
I mean, there's a number of different accreditations that, UVEX hold, EcoVadis being one of them. Yeah. It's that understanding of what is available from each manufacturer. We all tend to go to different accreditations, etc., and it's what works for that company, basically.
Okay, good.
I've been in sales for a long time in health and safety, and looking at tenders over many, many years as a distributor at times. Sustainability was a small part of the tender process. I have to say, in the last 3 or 4 years, particularly, that's now become a growing part of that requirement. A lot more of the scores appropriate to award of contracts is based on sustainability. So I think EcoVadis is a great example, right? For a manufacturer, it gives the credibility behind your processes. Yeah. It reinforces what you do. For the companies who buy your products, it's a great statement for them to use when they're bidding for business, that we use a credible supply chain, including companies such as Sundstrom. So it really is quite valuable to us.
Yeah. And that question wasn't on the sheet, so I'll sort of just throw that one in there for you. Keep you on your toes. The last question on current challenges is, how is sustainability impacted by budget restrictions? Debbie, I'll go to you first on that one.
I'd say yes. You know, you do get budget restrictions. However, I think it's how you look at sustainability. Everybody thinks there's a big cost to sustainability, but if you break it down into pillars, you can be sustainable just from being cost effective, longevity of product, durability. So you can tick boxes by using the right products, the right manufacturers. Secondly, you could sort of look at protecting planet products where you are putting more emphasis on the bio-based materials, the recyclable materials. So although I think it does affect budget, I think you can still put it into categories and work on it from a lower point up to a higher point.
Okay, good. Anything to add on that, Hugh?
The one thing I've found, and again come from an operations basis, is short-termism can sometimes be a barrier. You do your budgeting process at, say, September in the year, get them approved in November. It's typically looking at the next 12 months. From a sustainability perspective, we need to break this mindset. We've got to realise that investing today in the right products that may be that bit more expensive
Exactly,
may give you a
yeah.
bit of payback over the next 18 months, 2 years, not just 12 months.
Yeah.
So I think it's actually businesses biting the bullet and looking at these things medium, longer term, rather than just for the next 12 month duration.
Yeah, I'd agree, because at the end of the day, if you've got a product that is a more premium product, it's all the added value that you get with that product. So, you know, from a budgeting point of view, it should be at the beginning of the process.
Yeah.
I think it's another angle to it as well. I think I completely agree with everything you both just said there. I think it's absolutely spot on. It's short-term decisions if you're not careful. But there's another element to it, which is the people side of it. Because I think if you work for an organisation where you can't see that investment, I think younger people coming into the workplace these days, professional people, they look for those kind of behaviours and cultures in organisations. They want to be associated with it. And if you can't see evidence of it, they'll take their experience and knowledge elsewhere. And that's not good for sustainability in an organisation too. And you should be looking for longevity of service to a degree, I think, as a good indicator of that.
I think a lot of procurement people may look at the price tag on things solely as a price tag. So you're paying item price. They don't think about, you know, how much longer the more expensive product will last. So don't just look at the price tag. Look at the whole value of that maybe more expensive product. It may actually save you money in the long run. So I think it's just how we take that approach, isn't it, really?
And I do think sort of as things evolve, I think costings on sustainable products at the moment, yes, there is quite a gap between a bio-based product and a standard product. But I have seen evidence of that starting to come down as well. And I know we're sort of thriving to introduce changes into putting bio-based or recycled product into products and not increasing the price, just doing a straight switch from one to the other to show our commitment to sustainability.
Yeah. I think that's the way. Anything to add, Steph?
Yeah, I suppose for me, the key point there is maybe looking at it slightly different in terms of the return. So definitely on tenders, it's now often a large piece of that tender process, looking for you to be able to demonstrate your commitments to sustainability. So there's actually a commercial value on that as well. And the minute that you start to invest in sustainability and best practice, and you drive it through the culture and the heart of the business, that's where you will see that return coming back in spades, really.
Yeah, cool. Good answers, thank you. So we're stretching now for the next 5 years. Remember, the questions after this is future challenges, so this is just 5 years. So environmental responsibilities are becoming an increasing part of health and safety roles. What challenges should health and safety managers expect to see in the next 5 years? Paul? No, Hugh first, I think.
Okay, my friend. Well, the big difference I've seen already, you probably see it in job adverts, is exactly how many companies out there asking for people with sustainability experience or with that as a specific skill to lead in the business. So I think much more as HSE professionals shaping up so they have that sustainability experience and competence to understand what expectations are. Perhaps even working with good companies like yourselves to actually enhance their knowledge, getting more involved actually with the suppliers in terms of the procurement side of things to see what is available out there is so key even although we are wearing primarily a HSE hat. I think the sustainability is taking its own right from the environment, and as you said, for many years it was seen as a bit of a bolt-on under the environmental wing. It seems to be standing alone in its own right going forward now, so businesses are starting to recognise that.
Yeah. Paul?
I think the role of a health and safety manager is changing, full stop, because I hear it quite often now how it's no longer a health and safety manager, it's an environmental health and safety manager, which is maybe a different way of thinking for organisations, which is good. And those kind of challenges are going to come. The other kind of things is what you don't know is around the corner. Legislation can change relatively quickly sometimes, and it might demand a change in some raw material usage, which then in turn has an impact on the products that are manufactured. So companies might need to be more understanding of changes and development in product on a more frequent basis going forward.
Yeah, so there's a link there, isn't there? I talk to a lot of people that started careers in health and safety, and they always have the E added on for environment, or maybe they get quality as well, or something else. But I don't know too many people that started with environment that have had health and safety thrown at them. So I think it's going to be a bit of a merge now of those roles, and triple hatters and stuff we talk about with health, safety, environment and quality and so on.
Yeah, to the degree, even health and safety manager, how many people would have perhaps thought of safety as opposed to health? And even that's become much more of a priority recently. So the three together, I think.
Yeah, good. So I'm going to come to Steph, Debbie and Paul on the next one, I think. How can health and safety professionals work with their suppliers to meet their longer term sustainability goals? Steph, you look like you're dying to answer that one first.
Yeah, so I suppose, and I keep going back to it, it's education all the way through and collaboration. It's just vital in people. For example, our specialism is what we do at the end of the supply chain. Why would I expect anybody at the start of the supply chain to know that? So that's it for me, is people need to talk. These conversations need to keep happening. It's essential.
Debbie?
So part of our way of doing business basically is to support an end user. You're quite right there, Steph, from an educational point of view, whether it be about wearability, sustainability, and it is talking with the customer to understand their needs and collaborating to move things forward. Because like you say, things do change as we go on, and it's keeping that link so everybody understands where change needs to be.
Okay. Anything from you, Paul, on that one, I think?
It's very much the same thing. It's that relationship, isn't it, between all parties, whether it be the end user, what are their obligations, what are their expectations, and as a manufacturer, you need to understand that. So being close to the market in terms of whether your products are used, the companies who sell them for you, what are their objectives? What are their challenges? And some of those challenges might be because they know your organisation better, and it helps them create a really good focus in terms of where they're going. But if you don't talk to each other, you don't understand each other's challenges, it's much, much harder.
Okay. I'm going to ask you the same question, really, Hugh. You've come from a slightly different perspective, because obviously you're at the sharp end, you've just come back from mining contracts and things like that. So do you get to see that part of the supply chain when you're jumping in and out of these businesses, and how that can supply us and then the goals, if they have any, on sustainability in some of these organisations?
To be honest, I think particularly in bigger organisations, you don't have that transparency yet. And that's one of the pitfalls, is the fact people at the end user within the business of the PPE don't always get that information. And as you said, it's all down to education and collaboration. It's not the fact that the information isn't available, it's just the fact it's a large organisation and the primary focus may be certain functions. The more we can encourage these people, I think the more we can get positive feedback and positive buy-in. So it is important, and I think that's one of the advantages of a smaller business over a larger business, is the fact you can get this intimate relationship within the supply chain.
Okay. And the question I wrote down earlier on when we were reviewing these questions, a new one for everyone, this is open, not going to point at anybody. Will AI and other technology advances impact on PPE? Question, eh? Anybody?
Potentially,
Debbie?
it's the conduit for that collaboration, isn't it? When we look at advances in technology over the last 20, 30 years, you talk to most people and they'll talk about the fact that you can get any information you want from the web. So I think in terms of it being able to advance conversation, information, and making sure that people have better awareness, yes, but I think that's probably quite high level.
Okay.
I can see it. I see it already in a lot of industries. I see it already in a lot of PPE suppliers around the world where they're using AI, they're using technology either to eliminate the need for the person to interface with the hazard, or in terms of actually building the technology into things like smart helmets where you've got cameras, where you can use it for visualising or creating scenarios before actually going to high-risk environments. My big concern, though, is the fact that we've still got to get back to basics. People have got to have the ultimate responsibility for their own safety and welfare. The danger is sometimes that people think if the AI or technology is being used to manage the actual issues for them, they stop thinking about it and switch off. So the important thing is to get the right balance, but I think we've got a long way to go first before we develop the sustainable PPE. In the high-risk industries, yes, we can eliminate people from the high-risk activities, let's do that. But I still think there's a lot we can learn for ourselves in terms of our own specific needs in terms of sustainable PPE.
Okay, good, thank you. Anyone else got anything to add?
Yeah, I think it's a huge knowledge bank, isn't it? Let's be honest. And it can, if it's used creatively and in the right way, it can be a huge advantage. The danger of any kind of AI is that it can be also misleading. And I think there's a trend for us all to look through social media and information that pops up in front of us. How many of us know whether it's absolutely accurate?
Yeah.
So I think there's always that need to step back and just be reassured, are you doing the right thing? But used in the right way, it can be a huge advantage.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you very much. Future challenges. Just a couple of questions on this, but they're going to be in depth, I think. So to Paul and Debbie first. Inclusive design, you know why I'm coming to you guys, is a very hot topic, but there's not much consistency across the health and safety industry. How do you recommend it becomes more standardised and integrated? So Debbie, what do you think?
I mean, for us, it's quite different. Yeah, inclusive PPE. You need to have products that will fit everybody.
Yep.
So if we looked at a pair of safety shoes in sizes 3 to 6.5, it's made on a ladies last. The other sizes are a unisex or a gents last. But when you look at things like protective eyewear, you look at hard hats, you look at gloves, for me it's more about wearability. So it's about making sure that something fits everybody. We do ranges from size 5s to 12s in gloves, so we know that we can cover all the needs of whether you're of gender or... But what we're also doing is looking at specific brochures. So we're now doing like a ladies in PPE industry catalogue, etc., where we can identify what products are more suited to those individuals. I think the bigger issue is clothing, and that's the harder one to cover. But from UVEX point of view, we don't sell clothing, it's more your PPE. I mean, how do you find it from a...
You know, it's an interesting one. I think the evidence I've seen in Sundstrom is that that culture I talked about earlier on, it really rubs off into inclusivity as well. So when products are designed, the people around the factory will actually start wearing it. Yeah, so you'll get different shapes of people, sizes of people, male, female, whatever, trying on product, wearing it for a period of time and giving good feedback. And that partly drives the culture, I think, in terms of the business. But, you know, that kind of thing is really important to make sure that when you're selling something and taking a mortal risk product like respiratory protection, you know, you're putting something over your face, you're putting something over your head, yeah? It's not the most comfortable thing in the world. And if you can't get that bit right, there's a danger people don't wear it correctly. And if people don't wear it correctly, that's mortal risk potential. You know, so getting the comfort is really important across everyone, really.
But I think that's where we go back to education and support, because a lot of what we do at the moment is about fit clinics, making sure that an individual fits to a personal protective equipment. So whether it be eyewear for fit clinics to actually fit, you know, your product to your face. We've all got different shape heads, noses, ears lopsided, etc. So it is making sure that something does fit that wearer. We do it from footwear clinics to your eye protection right through to your hand protection. So it's education and support on clinics is key for us.
Because it's the piece as well, isn't it, about if you've got gloves is a good example, isn't it? If you've got to wear gloves because they're protecting your hands, but they're the wrong size, they're too big, are they really protecting your hands, or are they becoming a nuisance and they're just
You're
in
more
the
of a
way?
risk with
And you either
yeah.
don't wear them, or if you do wear them, you know, there's an increased risk of injury from doing
Exactly, yeah.
that. Okay. Hugh, on that one as well, I wasn't going to come to you, but thinking out there in operations and the sites you've worked on, do you see much inclusive PPE?
I don't think we've done anywhere near as much as we should have done, and I think it's a topic in its own right. Just the past 12 months or so, spending time in South Africa in the mines there, around 30% of the people working underground are ladies. And these ladies work, and they work in 12-hour shifts in really extreme conditions. But they're expected to wear the same footwear, the same overalls, the same headwear. And again, it's very tribal. It's Africa, South Africa, and a lot of them may have different hairstyles where they're not actually wearing the hard hat as such. It's more supported on their hair. So there's the education thing's very important, but also making again, back to what I said earlier about the fitness for purpose, making sure that we're designing the right footwear for the females, particularly if they're on the feet 12 hours a day. Females' feet postures are different, the shapes are different. Give them the comfort so they can do the job safely and do the job comfortably is a big thing to me.
Yeah, good. And it is a topic on its own, isn't it? And that'll, I think there's loads of different publications talking about it at the moment, so we'll see more of that coming
Yeah,
up.
it's a hot topic at the moment.
Very
isn't
hot.
it?
A question for Steph and Hugh again. New sustainability regulations, so it's regulations now, it's the boring bit at the end, are being introduced in the EU. Do they apply to both UK and Ireland equally? Remember, this group we go out to is a UK and Ireland group, so yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. So I suppose I would probably look at that more from the perspective of what are we actually doing in the UK. It's all very well to look across to the EU, look at what they're doing, get to a point where you're trying to keep up, but actually we should be spearheading this. And again, it goes back to who is making those decisions, where are those regulations coming from, and what's the knowledge that sits within that. We've seen all too many times where new regulation comes out and maybe the focus hasn't quite been on point. So again, I think for me it's there will be changes in regulations, and yes, we will have to hopefully up our game a little bit sometimes, but let's make sure that what we're doing is right.
Okay, good, thank you.
And I'm fully supporting Steph there. Traditionally in Europe, we very much led the way with a lot of the health and safety legislation. My only reservation is the fact that they may dilute some of these things because our European colleagues sometimes don't always like to be as hard-nosed as we can be. So I'd say, yes, let's see what's out there. Let's try and take the best practices. But again, it's an opportunity for industry to work with our suppliers to make sure that we set our own high standards rather than let minimal standards come in place and follow those. If we can take it to the next level, then we should really be trying to do that.
Okay, good point. I'm going to throw another question in here as well, actually. We spoke about 5 years and then future challenges. If we really think out into the future, not thinking AI specifically, but what is the biggest challenge that we've got now that could impact on PPE in the future, do we think? What is that biggest challenge? Steph, anything from you?
Yeah.
Another question I wrote down so you weren't prepared. Sorry.
No, that's absolutely fine. I think it's a really important question. And I think that we're trying to look to the future is always what you're trying to do. So in terms of sustainability, what do we look like today and what can we look like next year and the year after? I think that we have to acknowledge and accept, first of all, where we actually are, which is not in a great place. So what changes can we start to make? What are the small changes? What are the big changes? There has to be this, and there is this appetite. That's why we're seeing it in tenders. That's why we're sat here today, because there's really an appetite out there for a more sustainable product line, making sure that the people who are manufacturing goods, the people like us who are trying to repurpose and recycle those goods, are supported as much as they can be. And I sort of hope that in the future, the discussions we're having today will lead to some of those changes.
Okay, good, thank you. Paul, anything from you? You don't have to tell us your long-term business plan or anything like that.
No, I don't intend to.
Trying
Don't
to
worry.
understand.
I think it's on a different levels really. Society really has got to buy into this and it become part of just how we are as people, not just at business, at work, at home. It's on all levels, I think, and there's a danger that not everyone is consistent in their approach to it. How do you get that consistency? Well, you can ask nicely. You can set great examples, but there'll always be organisations or individuals who perhaps don't buy into it entirely. So I think the challenge might be, how do you make that happen in the future? Because it's going to have to happen.
Okay. Anybody else? Challenges?
For me, it relates to two things. I think the first challenge is you've probably seen it with everybody else, you guys, firsthand, particularly with things like COVID, the different people out there flooding with substandard products, whether it's eyewear, footwear, or whatever. It doesn't always say what it declares on the can in terms of the standard. So I think one of the things is, if we're going to drive sustainability, let's make sure that we maintain, if not raise, the standard in terms of expectations. So it could really be an enabler for us to try and eliminate some of these cheap copies that don't afford the people the same protection. And the big thing about me, we always talk about PPE, and it's probably me being one of these HSE buffs, but even my kids did fire risk assessments. They did first aid training when they were younger. I was quite keen on that because I was always away and can't let mum rely on everything. But one of the big concerns is we have more accidents in the homes than we have at work. And the biggest problem is you might be the greatest person for stickling with the rules at work, wearing the right PPE. Try and take that consideration home to protect yourself and to protect your families.
Yeah.
And I think the more we can get that convergence, then the more people are going to be more positive about wearing of PPE and sustainability.
I think it's
PPE
that
going forward.
well-being message, isn't
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
PPE that fits, and it's about it's touching the heartstrings to sort of say,
yeah.
yes, you're safe at work, but you want to go home in the evening. That applies the other way as well.
Very much
You
so,
want to
yeah.
be safe at home to be able to go to work the next day. So.
Okay, good. I'm wondering now if we've got any questions online. No questions online. If you have any questions out there, you've got 5 seconds to dial in and do a question. Anybody else got any questions? Anything you want to add to the session today? We're coming to a close, obviously. Got a couple of minutes left, but anything you want to add? Not a sales pitch, obviously.
No, I just think it's great that the forum is being created to have these conversations, and if we have these more often and more people are experiencing them, that'll help drive behaviour. So thank you for doing this today.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd echo that as well.
It's great for me being able to interact with different suppliers, seeing the level of commitment towards sustainability. I know your business as well, but didn't realise how much in depth you've been looking at sustainability and how far down the road you were in terms of the actual roadmap you have in terms of achieving sustainability excellence in the PPE. So thank you.
Good.
Yeah, and I think if there's anybody who wants to understand more, join us on that innovation and that investment in a better future, then absolutely reach out.
Good. Thank you very much. And there's still no questions online.
How can we get hold of the report?
Oh, how can we get hold of the report next week? Very easy, and that's on my crib sheet as well. You can join the health and safety group on LinkedIn, which is hopefully while you're watching this now. If not, tell your friends. But we've got health and safety professionals in the UK and Ireland. You can download the report there, and it will be available from I did make a note of it, the 30th of April. So you've got a week, and then you can download that, read it, and come and see us at our health and safety show in Birmingham next week. So we'll be there. We'll be doing some presenting, and we've got a couple of sessions over a couple of days. You can come and talk to us. But that's it. That's it for today. Thank you, panelists, and thank you for watching.